It's so snowy out here still. The sun has went behind the clouds now, and so the sun's not reflecting on the snow real bad because it's really bright. It hurts my eyes, so I had to wait a little bit before I came out here to film. But we've been talking about what Jesus said, right? It's to know and be reminded of what Jesus said. We've got to get it in our bodies, right? Get it in our minds. And so that's how you can be reminded of it by the Holy Spirit, is when you start to study and hear what Jesus had to say. And so Matthew chapter 7, we'll start in verse 15. He says, "Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruit you will recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus, by their fruit, you will recognize them." I hate this term, but people do it. People used to use it. I don't know if they still do or not. It's called, "Well, I'm a fruit inspector," right? I don't like that term. It just sounds overly self-righteous to me, to be honest with you. But the truth is, we do need to, watch people. If somebody is exhibiting questionable behavior to you, maybe you just don't trust them, maybe something about them doesn't seem right, just kind of watch their life, see what their actions produce, because that's what a lot of it's talking about, is what do your actions produce? Are your actions producing good things in life? Do you say that you trust Jesus, but then all of a sudden your actions are showing that you seem bitter and hateful? That's a good one right now, honestly. There's a lot of people who are just pent up bitterness. They're just so bitter, and they're just hateful in their actions. And Jesus said this, and I'll follow Jesus, and I'm a Christian, and I do this. But then all of a sudden, they just seem hateful. And a lot of times there's something lying beneath the surface, right? And that's a lot of times what happens is that there's something going on inside their heart that is different than what they're saying. And that's where it talks about with a good tree, and a bad tree can't bear good fruit, or a good tree can't bear bad fruit. We find that a lot of times, especially with tomato plants, right? Let's go to a little gardening thing. It's a little snow on the ground, but we're thinking about gardening inside. But with a tomato plant, for instance, you can have what looks to be a great plant, but when it comes down to bearing fruit, sometimes the fruit doesn't necessarily produce a great tomato. Like, the plant doesn't produce a great tomato, so the fruit starts turning bad before it ripens. And sometimes, like with a Roma plant especially, it can start, you get blossom end rot, or what we call bottom rot. The tomato plant itself isn't getting the nourishment that it needs, and the plant isn't a great plant because its fruit is rotten before it ripens. So it looks to be good, but it's producing bad fruit because there's something in the root. There's something in the inside of the plant that's going wrong. It's not what it appears to be. And oftentimes we're the same way, that there's something lying below the surface. I look okay, but on the inside there's something going on. There's something I'm hiding. I'm doing something that people aren't aware of, right? There's something lying beneath the surface that is just producing bad fruit. And you don't necessarily know that. And we can all be that way. We can all have things that are lying beneath the surface that are affecting our productivity, whether it be productivity in our life or productivity in our Christian walk. That there's something lying beneath the surface that's making us produce bad fruit, right? And that's what Jesus is talking about here, is that, like, we need to make sure that we bear good fruit, that our plants or our trees, ourselves, right, are put in good soil, that we're producing good fruit, that we're being productive in our life. And we can't necessarily do that appropriately unless we are rooted in Jesus, rooted with a good Christian walk, rooted with a relationship with Jesus Christ. That's how we make sure we produce good fruit. And it's really difficult, I would argue impossible, to consistently produce good fruit if you aren't rooted in Jesus, if you don't have a good relationship with Jesus Christ. Jesus went on to talk about later in that passage there about people who say Lord, Lord, produce or are working in Jesus' name, not entering the kingdom of heaven. And it's another thing, is if you can do these things without being rooted in Jesus, you're doing them for yourself. You're doing them for vanity purposes. Or you're doing them to get praise from men, honestly. So it's another story, to be honest with you. It's not really what we're talking about, but that is in this passage. And that's where Jesus started out talking about watching out for false prophets. Hey, not everybody who's doing these things is actually doing them for me, right? It's what Jesus was talking about. And as it pertains to us, the average person, we're just needing to bear good fruit. We just need to make sure that we are doing things for the right reasons, that we're not harboring bitterness and maliciousness and ill will in our hearts, that our hearts are and our lives are rooted in Jesus, and that we are planted in good soil, focusing on Jesus, because that's how we make sure that the fruit we produce is good. That's how we make sure that we are not bad trees or bad plants, right? And just that's how we don't get sidetracked and kicking snow off the patio. But that's how we do this, and make sure that we are being productive in our walk with Jesus. So let's do that. Let's make sure that our hearts, below the surface of our bodies, are in good shape. That what lies beneath our surface is being portrayed on the outside, and that Jesus gets glorified, and that we are in this for Him and Him alone, even in the hardest of times. So thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. My name is Jason. This is Art of Creation Homestead. We love y'all. God bless you, and goodbye.